Remember when music had soul, depth, and sometimes stirred up a bit of controversy? Join me as we explore forgotten songs from 1977 that deserve another listen. The female trio Stargard burst onto the scene in 1977, but their path to success wasn't exactly conventional. Originally formed in Philadelphia as a backing group for local R&B acts, they caught the attention of Norman Whitfield, the legendary Motown producer known for his controversial production techniques and pushing boundaries. What many don't know is that Whitfield allegedly kept the group in a form of musical boot camp for months, forcing them to practice up to 14 hours a day before he'd allow them to record. The song, theme from Which Way Is Up, marked their debut, reaching number 21 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 15 on the Soul charts. The track's success was partly due to its connection to the Richard Pryor film of the same name. Here's something that might surprise you. Stargard was actually the first female group to be signed to Warner Brothers Records, paving the way for future female artists. The group's choreography in the film was so complex that Richard Pryor himself attempted to learn it for a scene, but after multiple failed attempts, the scene had to be rewritten. Rubicon represents one of those fascinating stories of talent, timing, and terrible luck. Formed in the San Francisco Bay Area in 1976, the band was actually created from the ashes of two other groups, Stoneground and Cold Blood. I'm Gonna Take Care of Everything should have been their breakthrough hit. And while it did achieve moderate success, the song's potential was hampered by a bizarre series of events. The master tapes were accidentally erased and had to be re-recorded in a single marathon session. The stress of this incident led to their lead guitarist quitting mid-session, though he was convinced to return after a heated negotiation in the studio parking lot. Most people don't realize that Rubicon's horn section was so highly regarded that they were asked to join Tower of Power, but turned down the offer to maintain their own identity. Warren Zevon's Werewolves of London emerged from one of the most interesting backstories in rock history.
Werewolves of London.
Zevon, known for his darkly humorous lyrics and unconventional approach to songwriting, was actually struggling with severe substance abuse issues when he wrote this track. The song was initially conceived as a joke during a drinking session with Phil Everly of the Everly Brothers, who dared Zevon to write a dance song about werewolves. The recording process was anything but smooth. It took 3 different backing bands and 59 takes to get the version we know today. Jackson Browne, who produced the track, nearly gave up on the project after Zevon became increasingly difficult to work with, reportedly showing up to sessions in various states of consciousness and sometimes carrying a gun, which he would place on the mixing console. The howl in Werewolves of London wasn't actually Zevon. It was one of the session musicians, who did it as a joke during recording. The take was so perfect, they kept it in the final version. If you remember where you were when you first heard these songs, I want to hear about it in the comments below. Share your memories, hit that like button, and subscribe to keep these musical conversations going. And hey, if you know someone who needs to hear these stories, share this video with them. The Michael Zager Band's Let's All Chant emerged during a time when disco was dominating the airwaves, but Zager's approach was radically different. A classically trained musician, Zager actually despised most disco music, considering it repetitive and artistically shallow. What many don't know is that Let's All Chant was originally written as a commercial jingle for a New York department store. The store rejected it for being too provocative, but Zager recognized its potential. The production involved a 40-piece orchestra, unprecedented for a disco recording, and the famous aha ehe vocal hook was actually recorded by professional opera singers, not disco vocalists. The track's distinctive synthesizer sound came from a malfunction in the recording equipment. During the session, a power surge damaged one of the synthesizers, creating a unique electronic warble that Zager loved so much he kept it in the final mix. Patti Smith's Because the Night represents one of the most fascinating collaborations in rock history. The song, co-written with Bruce Springsteen, came about during a period when Smith was facing intense criticism for being too masculine in her performances. The song's journey from Springsteen to Smith is a legendary tale. Springsteen was struggling with his own version during the Darkness on the Edge of Town sessions when engineer Jimmy Levine, who was working with both artists, brought the unfinished track to Smith. She completely transformed it. A lesser-known fact, the final version of Because the Night was recorded during a severe thunderstorm in New York City. Smith claims you can hear thunder in the background of the master recording if you listen closely with headphones. The track was also recorded in one take, with Smith performing with a 102-degree fever. Celebration featuring Mike Love created Almost Summer during a period when the Beach Boys were experiencing severe internal turmoil. Mike Love, who was looking for a side project away from the band's drama, collaborated with Celebration almost in secret. The recording sessions were held late at night to avoid media attention, and several Beach Boys members were furious when they discovered Love's involvement. Few people know that Almost Summer was originally written for a low-budget surf movie that never got made. The film's producer disappeared with the initial funding, but the song survived. The track features uncredited background vocals from several prominent California music scene musicians who were simply hanging around the studio that night. These stories deserve to be shared and remembered. If you've got memories of these songs or the era, drop them in the comments. And don't forget to hit subscribe and ring that bell. We're building a community of music lovers who understand that 1977 was more than just disco and punk. Share this video with someone who appreciates real music history. Eruption's cover of I Can't Stand the Rain showcases one of music's most tragic yet inspiring stories. The German-based group, fronted by Precious Wilson, faced enormous challenges breaking into the disco scene as a predominantly black group in Europe. Record executives initially wanted to hide the band's identity, suggesting they use Caucasian models for their album covers, a suggestion the band firmly rejected. The song's production history reveals a fascinating battle of wills. Producer Frank Farian, later infamous for the Milli Vanilli scandal, fought with Wilson over the song's arrangement, wanting to minimize her vocal power to fit disco conventions. Wilson threatened to quit multiple times during recording, believing the original Ann Peebles version deserved more respect. The tension in the studio became so intense that other band members had to physically separate Farian and Wilson during one particularly heated argument. Here's a shocking detail. The iconic synthesizer intro was actually recorded by mistake. The engineer left the tape running during an equipment test, and when they played it back, the band realized it was perfect for the song. That happy accident became one of the most sampled intro sections in dance music history. Toby Beau's My Angel Baby emerged from San Antonio's vibrant but often overlooked 1970s music scene. The band, led by Toby Beau Rodriguez, faced significant resistance from radio programmers who claimed their sound was too Mexican for mainstream audiences. Rodriguez responded by leaning harder into their unique cultural blend, even though it meant potentially limiting their commercial success. The recording process was plagued with technical difficulties. The studio they used was so poorly maintained that rain would leak through the ceiling onto the equipment. They had to record late at night when the nearby train traffic was minimal, and the band members worked day jobs to pay for studio time. Despite these challenges, or perhaps because of them, they captured a sound that stood apart from the polished production of their contemporaries. The song's signature guitar riff was played on a borrowed instrument because Rodriguez had pawned his own guitar to pay for studio time. The person who loaned him the guitar? None other than Willie Nelson, who happened to be recording in the same studio complex. Steve Martin's King Tut might seem like a novelty song, but it actually sparked serious controversy in the academic world.
Boy, King!
Several Egyptologists criticized the song for trivializing important historical artifacts, particularly during the Treasures of Tutankhamun tour of the U.S. Martin, however, maintained that the song was actually satirizing the commercialization of Egyptian history, not the history itself. The recording sessions were unconventional to say the least. The Toot Uncommons were actually members of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band recording under a pseudonym to avoid contract issues with their label. The entire song was recorded in just 2 takes, with Martin performing his famous tut dance moves in the studio to keep the band's energy up. The producers were reportedly concerned that the song was too ridiculous to release, but Martin insisted it was exactly ridiculous enough. Few people realized that King Tut actually outsold every single release by the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band that year, much to the band's amusement and their record label's frustration. The song's success led to a surge in museum attendance wherever it was played in heavy rotation. Walter Egan's Magnet and Steel rounds out our journey through 1977's forgotten tracks. The song, inspired by Stevie Nicks, who provided backing vocals, came about during a period when the LA music scene was consumed by romantic entanglements that would later become legendary. Egan's infatuation with Nicks created tension during recording, particularly since the sessions were produced by Nicks' then-boyfriend, Lindsey Buckingham. Their production of the song was a masterclass in passive-aggressive behavior. Buckingham, clearly aware of Egan's feelings for Nicks, reportedly made him record the vocal track dozens of times, claiming none were quite right. Meanwhile, Nicks' backing vocals were completed in a single take. The studio atmosphere was so charged with unspoken emotion that several session musicians asked to be credited under pseudonyms to avoid being caught in the drama. That's our journey through some of 1977's most overlooked songs. Each one tells a story not just about music, but about the human experience, the conflicts, the passions, and the determinations that went into creating these recordings. If you've enjoyed these stories, make sure you're subscribed for more deep dives into music history. Leave a comment sharing your memories of these songs, and don't forget to like and share this video. Until next time, keep those turntables spinning and those memories alive.